IVM.
We'd like to thank Storytel for sponsoring this show. Storytel is an audiobook platform that lets you hear hundreds of thousands of stories on your mobile, PC, wherever you prefer. Now, generally, Storytel is a great deal at $2.99 a month for an unlimited number of books, but for our listeners, we've got something special. The first month for IVM listeners is now just $99. That's an insane deal. It's $200 off the first month. To start you off, let me recommend one of my favorite books, Range, How Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. It's a book by David Epstein, and it's one of the most thoughtful books I've read recently. He talks about early specialization and why that's not necessarily the best way to go in a modern world where problems are not always simple, and viewing them from multiple lenses are helpful. In the Indian context, where we're forced to choose science, commerce, or arts in the 10th standard, I think this is particularly applicable, and it's a great read. So go to storytel.com/IVM, go get your first month at just $99, and check out Range by David Epstein. Great read.
This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape. You're listening to Vineet Kanabar on the IVM Podcast Network. Today we're going to talk about a festival that has been called India's Happiest Festival for the longest time. It's a festival that I have enjoyed going to several times. I mean, I remember one of my favorite memories was a Wall of Death when Meshuggah played Delhi in 2013. But since then, Bacardi NH7 Weekender has become a mammoth. It is the festival to go to on the calendars at the end of the year, nearly at the end of the year. I think somewhere along the way, went from Magarpatta lawns in Pune to 5 venues across India. It's had its ups and downs over the past 10 years, but this year, Bacardi NH7 Weekender went digital. And to talk about that, I am very, very happy to be joined by Sameeksha, who is the consumer marketing lead at Bacardi, and Gunjan Arya, CEO at Only Much Louder. We're going to talk about Weekender, what Bacardi and OML have been putting together or did put together for this year, and the stories of these two amazing people and working in entertainment. Guys, welcome to the show. That was my introduction for you guys, but I'm going to throw it over for you to introduce yourselves in a bit. But before we get there, how was this edition? It was the first time you guys went digital. How was it for you guys?
Amazing. Amazing. I think it went way beyond our expectations in terms of the love that we got from the consumers. And you could see it, right? It was all there live for you to catch it. If you attended it, so would you have, Vineet. And internally at Bacardi, I think we were ecstatic. We were amazed at what we could pivot to, in a short span of time during these, whatever is happening around us. And we could bring something so beautiful, simple, and accessible to the consumers right now. And we retained what we always did in December, which is the Weekender state of mind. So we are super happy.
That's great. Gunjan?
Thanks, Sam. So for us, of course, Bacardi's support to the music community has always meant a whole great deal. And for us to be given this opportunity to use this year to still show up and continue to build that space for fans and artists is something that's very precious to us. And I think the community responded similarly. They all showed up. They showed up in record numbers. And I think you could see that with the entire experience. The way they spoke about the festival, it's out there for everyone to see. We're really, really ecstatic about what we could do in a year like this.
That's fantastic. I think we'll hold that thought, come back to talking about the digital edition of Weekender and other editions of Weekender as well, and all that, all the cool things that you guys have put together over the years. But before that, quick introduction so that my listeners know a little bit about you and your stories, right? Starting with you, Sameeksha, you've been marketing person for maybe 13, 14 years.
A very long time.
Yeah, a long time, right? And
yes.
You went from starting in media to entertainment and now to alcohol. How's that journey been for you?
I think, as a child, I've always been fascinated. I've grown up on Ramayana and then Z's and all the other stuff that you could watch on television. I've been brought up in Dehradun, which had limited access to, the other stuff. But I think, and in media, marketing, I think all these things always excited me. Like I remember all the jingles of the ads also possibly that you saw. So the next graduate thing for me to do was that after my graduation, what do you want to do? I enrolled myself I luckily got into Mudra Institute of Communication, which only then enhanced my love for this. But at the end of it, I think after those 2 years, I realized that, it's all connected to something very simple, which is, and consumer as a word, I think we use too much. But in the end, it's all understanding what is it that you want to tell. And I think it also relates to what your show says, right? It's about storytelling. So everything that I've done so far, whether it was my media role, where I worked on a television channel, it was Sony Entertainment, it was all about stories, or whether I moved into another media role, which was media planning in an agency, that was about building the stories for the brands, in the right way, in the right media platforms, to MTV, which is about the youth culture, that how do you connect to those consumers from that point of view, and now to Bacardi, which I think has been the leader. I always looked up to Bacardi when, I was in the previous organizations also with the stuff that they were doing in marketing. And it was a great opportunity for me to join the company. Luckily, they love me also, so here I am. And the last 4 years at Bacardi have been truly amazing. I've worked on some amazing platforms, including Bacardi NH7 Weekender. As you said, I've been to Bacardi NH7 Weekender for the last 6 years, 4 as a working party, 2 as consumer. So it was always amazing to see, everybody come together on the ground, the love. So yes, the journey has been amazing. And I'm sure you're going to talk more about it in the next few minutes that we chat about it.
Fantastic. And I think as a fellow Mican, the 2 buzzwords there was advertising. And I mean, I know how best Micans tend to be with ads. I mean, nobody analyzes ads more than it's just there now, right? Like
from numbers to everything, like what is it?
And storytelling, right? I think something that school does give you.
It does, right?
Pushes you in that direction. But enough about that. We are all 30 plus. We will not talk about where we went.
Not millennials also anymore, I guess.
Stop dating us, Vineet.
Hey man, it's just a number, but it is a number. Right?
Unfortunately.
But coming around to you, Gunjan, if I read this correctly during my bit of stalking and bit of research, you started the first Weekender as part of the design team, if I'm not mistaken, and now
yes, that's right.
Now you're CEO, right? You know that's not a very popular journey, right?
Amazing journey.
Right? This is an insane journey. Can you tell us more about that? How do you go from the creative design side of things to the CEO of the happiest festival in the country? Just tell us more.
I think by being born into a Marwadi family.
Occam's razor, man. It's simplest.
I had to look at the business side of it, right? But no, honestly, I always wanted to study design. I even got into NID, but unlike you lucky folks, I was not allowed to go to Ahmedabad because the family had spent so many years trying to get us out of a remote village. I told my granddad that, hey, I got into NID and I want to go to design school. He was like, you are never going to learn anything useful in a small city. Please don't, I've spent my life trying to get you guys to Bombay. Now please don't go to Ahmedabad, go anywhere else you want. So that kind of pushed me to look at schools internationally where while I was studying media, the only thing my dad could think of was, hey, your education isn't complete unless and until you study business. And that kind of made me do a few courses in business as well. So that's where the business side of the brain sort of got screwed on. But yes, I've always been interested in that side of how experiences are built, how experiences felt. And that was majority of my training, whether from an understanding media perspective at school or then coming back to it and working with Chlorophyll, which is India's first brand consulting firm.
Anand Halve.
Yes, Anand Halve.
Rest in peace.
Yes, mentor for most people that went to Mica, IIM Ahmedabad, and then for us at Chlorophyll. To then starting out on my own as design of information, OML called me one day to say, hey, we're doing a small party in Pune. Do you want to come along and see the venue? And that's literally how it started. We went there without a measuring tape. We have literally put one foot in front of the other trying to measure a venue. Of course, we got it wrong in the first year. We had 3 different stages and we had a road going between the 3 stages. We had cops helping fans cross the road so that they could go from one bar to the next stage, which is unheard of in a music festival. So that was year 1 where we were purely engaged as a design agency. To then, of course, realizing that if I continue as a brand consultant, I will only be selling more plastic shit to the world. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And the journey with OML was to use those skills and help artists find a bigger voice. And that's what made me make the switch. So I came over to the OML side where we'd had many successful partnerships, including with Bacardi. So Dewar's Whiskey, which is one more portfolio brand in the Bacardi stable. We worked on a show called The Tourist. We won Cannes. The year itself that branded entertainment as a category was instituted at Cannes. So we'd had a lot of successes, and we just wanted to continue doing more of that.
Fantastic. That's a great introduction. I think your initial fears about that should be completely laid to rest, right? Let me ask you this, though. Does it help to be from a design background on the business side of things? I mean, how's that played out for you?
I would say yes, because it clearly worked out for me. But I do believe that coming from a liberal arts background is something that helps any business, even if it's a tech business, because it gives you context with which to evaluate trends that are happening around you, and then, of course, perspective to deal with it. So I do believe that a liberal arts education is very valuable in most business settings.
Yeah, I think everyone should get more liberal arts in their curricula. Moving on quickly, though, and I think this is the right time to ask you this question, right? And I'd love Gunjan to get started, but give us like a historical tour of Bacardi NH7 Weekender, right? And I'll tell you where I'm coming from, right? And Gunjan, anybody who's seen the independent music scene in India will relate to this sentiment. We Indians do a job of documenting our urban culture, right? Like an absolute
not just urban, all culture.
All culture, sure, but especially urban culture, right? Like what gets dismissed as "ye to bacche karte hain," that we don't document very well, right?
Correct.
I mean, you think Coachella 10 years in would have had at least like half a book written about it, saying this is how Coachella happened, and everybody would go out and buy that book. But let's do that, right? Since that doesn't exist, and there's an idea, yeah, please go ahead and do it. I will take 5%. Right? No, but help us do that, right? If I give you like a couple of minutes to get started, give us a historical tour of this property, right? How did it become this fixture that it is on the young Indian social calendar?
This is obviously not a 5-minute long answer, but I will try to do my best to sort of trim it down. But I think the idea that India is opening up to developing its own unique independent scene was something that the folks at Bacardi and OML saw very clearly long before the others did. And I think this came off the back of initial work with programming independent nights at local establishments like Hard Rock Cafe and the like, where, of course, there was global music playing, but then there were also nights that had independent musicians playing their own original work. And that was the beginning of that conversation, to say, hey, there is something here. It's important to build it out. It's important to support the scene. And that's really what allowed us to start thinking, hey, there is an opportunity to build this out. I remember the first Weekender itself, where we worked on the schedule for the festival, and it was printed in these foldable pamphlets. And obviously with multiple stages, there were different acts going on at the same time. We actually had people walk up to us saying, listen, how are these two happening at the same time? Where should I go? And I remember having to actually walk those folks over to say, listen, it's up to you. Everything's happening at the same time. You decide what you want to see. And if you want to see half of one and, the remaining half, spend it between the other two stages, go ahead and do that. So I think for the audience as well, it was a bit of a leap of faith to say, oh, wow, these things happen. Because before the Bacardi NH7 Weekend had happened, there was never a multi-genre music festival that only showcased independent music. So starting from our initial years back then to then, I remember the first time we ended up really getting a lot of chatter online from folks that were outside the independent music scene. Was the first time we had Amit Trivedi on the bill. And that was like, oh, Weekenders going mainstream. Why do they have Bollywood on the bill? And we had to actually go back to the fans, of course, the hardcore fans that still believe that year one was the best, and I'm one of them, to say that, hey, it's important to widen our horizons. It's important to widen the landscape. And while independent musicians get a chance to get discovered by fans of other independent musicians, it's important for independent musicians to get discovered by fans of Bollywood music as well. And it's important for us to create this large soundscape that is more representative of our culture. And Amit Trivedi, if I can remind you, was definitely more left of center than, mainstream. For sure, yeah. So we sort of had that in our evolution as well. So then, of course, this year, when we announced the digital edition of the festival, the very day we announced the festival, I think we sold over 500 tickets. And this is when people know that no on-ground show is happening. They know that, we haven't yet announced the lineup. We haven't yet announced what we are doing online in terms of building out the platform, etc. But we still saw that love. So I think 10 years later, people have sort of gotten used to, Acha, if this is Bacardi NH7 Weekender, it will hopefully be the happiest weekend. And Vineet, like you said, right, most people have come to associate that with the festival. So I think those have been some key moments in the way we've evolved over the years.
That's very nicely broken down. In Bacardi's association with the property, right? Like, it takes a lot of foresight, first of all, to be associated with it from the ground up, right? Second is, it also takes a lot of conviction to continue that association over this long, right? How would you say, Sameeksha, is from a cultural perspective and B, from a business perspective, how's it made sense? How's this association been for you?
I think from a cultural perspective, Bacardi has always taken pride in bringing those, immersive experiences to consumers. Weekender, of course, is at the forefront of it. Our association for the last 11 years, I would say. This is the 11th year. But before that also, we've always taken pride in getting the best immersive experiences to our consumers. Be the best of the parties at that point in time, which the Indian consumer had not seen. And parties not like just parties out there. They used to be those beach parties, etc. And I'm just quoting a couple of things. But at the same time, our commitment to, and I would say like serving culture to our consumer and having that right to be part of their conversations. If we want to say that, okay, we want to serve the pop culture to our consumer and this is what XYZ I'm going to do, I need to have the right to talk on that space. And hence our commitment to this long-standing property, over the last 10, 11 years, because you can't do something which, happens in a blip and then goes away. You need to have a long-standing commitment towards anything that you do and continue it. And I think it brings us immense joy and pleasure that we've taken Bacardi NH7 Weekend in the way it has been. And I just love the example, the way, Gunjan was talking about it, and we were measuring steps on foot from one space to 2 to 5 properties to different formats. So the journey has been incredible, and it has been because of 2 to 3 things. One, I think the utmost is the support of not only our fans, but also our partners, OML, of course, at the lead of it. And secondly, the artists as well. The love that we've got from the artist community, builds back our confidence in this, that what we're doing is on the right track. And it's not something that, is just there for to get those numbers on board, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think that's the commitment that Bacardi has on board.
Now, that's wonderful to hear. Let me ask you this very quickly though. How does this partnership really operationalize, right? Like, how far along do you plan things? What kind of a difficult question, eh?
No,
actually not.
Touchy topic.
No, but I mean, again, without stepping on toes here, but just to get a sense of how do you make it happen, right? Because obviously it's on paper, it sounds like a great match, right? But that's only on paper. Making great things happen takes a lot of effort, conversation, intent to do it. And then you have to go back and do it again next year.
Yes.
So how does it operationalize between
I think it's a never-dying conversation, Gunjan, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think at Bacardi, we do, right? I think there are 3 pillars that Bacardi stands for as a company. And the reason I'm saying this, I'll tell you. It's founders, fearlessness, and the third is family. And I absolutely have no qualms about it that when we work on Weekender, we are absolutely transparent with each other. So I can pick up the phone on Gunjan and any of the working committee out there, whether it's at Bacardi or whether it's at OML. We don't work like 2 units that, okay, I am the client and you're the guys who are going to execute it. That relationship has never been that. And I've been working on it for the last 4 years. We have a massive, large team at Bacardi itself who works on it before me also. I think that's the way the relationship has been built. And I'm sure that's how OML also stands for. I know that Bacardi stands for that. So each and every partner that we work with, we take immense pride that we co-curate it, we co-build it. We are equal partners in whatever we do. And this property stands as the epitome or as the best example, frankly, whenever we have to quote or we have to create anything new with anybody out there. Of course, like any family, there'll be fights and they'll be like, hey, you know what, if this is what we want to do, we don't think. And we are absolutely blatant about that. So we'll have our fights, we'll have our arguments, we'll have our disagreements also on the table. But in the end, I think the effort has always been towards working towards, getting it to the next level. And I think that's the commitment which goes as a team. And I'm not saying this because I'm on record and I'm over here, but I truly, truly believe that. And the way I think the property has also grown over the last 10 to 11 years. And by grown, I mean, again, not in numbers. The way it has grown in the kind of love or the fans that we see, coming on it a year and year just shows that we are onto something right. And it's great to work on something like that. So of course there'll be fights, there'll be all those stuff that will happen. But in the end, we like, okay, we are celebrating. So I think even this year, when we could see, okay, hey, you know what, this is happening, that is happening, and we constantly messaging each other. Like, and again, it's not like client and all. We're like the bouncers who were acting onto that virtual world that we created, that this guy is commenting on this and this girl is getting trouble. I'm just kidding. But I think we work like that. I don't know if G has to say something else. That's up to her.
No, but I completely agree, Sameeksha. I think for us, exactly what you said, right? What gives us the right to play in this space and to stand up for the community? It's because as both organizations, we've always had the same sort of North Star. If the idea is to be dedicated purely to the music community and do right by it, as long as we have the same principles guiding us, I know we're on the same track, and we'll figure out whatever friction there is in terms of working those aspects out. But I think just having that support from each other is what's led to this very long-standing and very well-received partnership.
Fantastic. Let me ask you this though, like in a specific manner, even if we just to sort of workshop this. Building an IP like this year on year, there are programming calls that are getting taken, I'm guessing, at OML from a festival curation perspective. There are scale calls that I'm sure are getting taken at Bacardi's level or jointly. Right? Like simple question of how many cities do we do this in this time around? Right? Can you help us understand how you would go through answering a question like this? Right? Again, I'll follow this up with asking you about the digital edition immediately, right? Because that's such a complex decision to take, right? I will come to that. But if there was a question like how many cities should we go to this year, right? How would you guys go about answering something like that?
I think from a brand perspective, and that's the approach we take. We do have a certain, right, like strategy is not the word that we want to use, but a brand has to follow a certain guideline. Like, what is my 5-year plan that I want to achieve? So of course we approach each and every platform that we associate with the property that we build with that objective in mind, that if this is what I want to do this year, these are the cities I possibly want to target, or this is the audiences that I'm going to talk to. And this is a scale that I can build up to. So, and it's set, right? Like every year if there's a new product launch, for example, happening, et cetera. So every year there can be a certain tweak which happens to the format for the better. And we do take those hard calls as well that, okay, so you started the conversation with that also, that, it went from 1 city to 5 cities. And then we then started focusing on 2 cities, which is Pune and Shillong as a physical edition, because the scale of those cities increased to that level that we had to put our efforts towards working the best possible output for the consumers who are coming out there, rather than segmenting yourself that, hey, I'm going to present on 5 cities because I want that kind of footprint. I don't want to do that as a brand. And I'm sure as a property, we don't want to build that kind of experience. If I can't do a half-ass job in those beautiful places, then there's no point in building that experience. So I think it's setting up the brand objectives. And of course, the property is out there for the consumers, for the artists, for the love for Bacardi, for music and the community and the emerging artists and the discovery of that music as well. And when we set those objectives in a clear manner at the beginning of the year, we plan it like that eventually.
Thanks, Sam. So that's actually a great example of Bacardi actually seeing the side of a festival promoter, because that's exactly how we decided. So I remember the years that we did Delhi and Bangalore. We realized that when you're in a big city, people tend to experience the festival as a concert and not as a festival. Because you live in the same city, you open up the schedule and you're like, hey, this is the artist that I want to watch. And this is only an hour's drive away from me at the most. I can definitely just go there, check out this act and leave. Whereas we were very clear, both Bacardi and OML, that Bacardi NH7 Weekender needs to be the place that you spend your entire weekend. And that's what we built out that music buffet for, for lack of a better phrase. And we wanted that discovery angle is really important to us. So we're very clear on what we're here to do and build together. And that really makes these conversations a lot easier. To say, hey, does it make sense then to do our best job and put the best foot forward in just Pune and Meghalaya, and let's not venture out and try to do smaller things in other markets anymore. So that's really where that decision came from.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But let me ask you this on the back of that, right? Here you are building up the happiest weekend in the country, and then there is the pandemic. And now there is no difference between a concert and a concert video, right? Like there's no difference. As someone who would regularly visit concerts, I have seen like maybe 1.5 digital concerts. Like I can't do it. there's no difference between Instagram live पे दो लोग साथ में बात कर रहे हैं and लिफाफा standing there and playing Jago. Like there's no difference, there's no fidelity, right? How do you reconcile this, first of all? And from what I've heard and what I've seen as well about Weekender, my sense is you had about 60 to 70,000 people there over the past 2 or 3 days. That's my sense, right? Again, I don't know numbers, but that's a lot of people. How did you set it up for this year, right? Like, what did you set out to do? What were what was the conversation internally? Like, what were the anxieties? I'm sure you knew that there are certain acts who will pull people in, but the experience itself, right? That's the fidelity loss. That's what's gone, right? How did you make up for it? What was the thought process there? I'd love to know this.
Sameeksha, do you want to take this?
Okay, so let me start with this, that one thing we knew for sure when we started, this year, that we are going to bring Weekender back. And Bacardi NH7 Weekender is one weekend in December, which we know our fans look forward to, which we know internally as a company we look forward to. So that was for sure. We're going to bring it back. But of course, I think the sense of anxiety started growing when the numbers started growing. At the beginning of the lockdown, you thought it's for a month, it's for 2 months. We did a couple of editions, by the way, of Happy at Home, which was exactly what you said. It was an Instagram live thing. We did it in March and April, if I'm thinking within a month of the lockdown, to see what traction is. And we got some beautiful responses to that. We got about 6 million views to that itself, over the 2 weekends. But at the same time, when we knew that if we have to bring the Bacardi NH7 Weekender back, we can't do it in that format, which a consumer is now going to be bored by December. There have been a lot of virtual experiences out there which you would be exposed to. I think what also started happening, that virtual experiences were, breaking those global barriers as well. So Metallica, which was possibly not accessible to you here, is now accessible to you because you just log on and you can buy that ticket at that ticket price point. So when we started planning on it, and we knew we had to create a separate ecosystem, I would say. And that's the platform which our partners at OML and Insider could bring to life. There's a lot to learn. There's no doubt, but it was not supposed to be a live session, which is like somebody out there. It was not going to be, a video that you can, hey, let me just Google it and find it. That music video is better than that. It had to be specially curated stats for a consumer. That sense of community had to be there when we build that platform up. Again, accessibility was, I think, the key thing which we, it opened up. And I think it's an opportunity, Vineet, and we looked at it as an opportunity that till last year, when we were looking at a Pune and a Shillong, and, how do we reach, how do we widen our reach as a brand, you'll always do that. How do I get reach and how do I get that scale? This gave us that opportunity to increase our bandwidth from 2 cities. And though the content was always there from a, digital point of view for women or for Weekender as well. But I think this year we took content a step further, when we were curating it and building on 6 experiences and then looking at and scale. And this stream was accessible to the all of Asia. I think that, brings possibilities for us from future as well. And I like Gunjan talk about the platform a little bit more, but it was a beautiful platform, which, those things that you want to see when you're there. And I'll just quote one example that when I have attended Weekender, as a consumer, I used to always say, do I go to the Bacardi stage? Do I go to the Door stage? And, and that's always the dilemma in the mind of the consumer. We still kept that dilemma. And we could see that on the chat window live that, hey, you know what? There's this one thing that, oh my God, I don't want to listen to Anuv. I want to go and see the Luminaires. Oh my God, there's Luminaires playing. Oh, but Kalamkar is killing at the Visa stage. And we could see it on the chat window and everybody's watching it. So that's just one of the examples. But we picked up those nicks and, cruxes, like small things to build a platform that whatever we could, to bring it alive in that page of NH7. And I'm sure Gunjan has various examples of what all we built in to have those human motivators of connections build up for us. But a lot of anxiety, you're right. Like the last moment, full of anxiety. When the platform is going live, oh my God, full of anxiety.
I love the passion with which you talked about it, man. I mean, it just felt like so much of what you wanted to bring alive came alive. And
it did.
Gunjan, tell us how you kept the community spirit going. Tell us how you kept the Weekender state of mind on digital.
Thanks, Sameeksha. Thanks, Vineet. So you asked this question earlier, which is how long does it take to plan a Weekender? And last year we sort of ended up on 10 years of the festival, massive numbers, biggest we've ever been. And of course, Jan, Feb is time to sort of review what you're doing, but it also always takes us a whole year. Okay, so in terms of artist reach outs, in terms of figuring out. So if everything was normal around us right now, bands typically start figuring out their scheduled tours a year in advance.
Yep.
They figure out whether they're going to be touring or if they're going to be writing new material. If they're touring, what does their tour schedule look like? And reach out start back then. Okay, so obviously we met in Jan Feb. We're like, hey, how was the last year? Okay, what can we change? What can we improve? Which is normal every year. Of course, the only thing that changed this time was March is when the country went into lockdown. Super grateful to Bacardi because we realized that, hey, if everybody is isolating at home, can we use this as an opportunity to bring discombobulated fans and musicians together? That's what led to Happy at Home Instagram Live version 1. Okay, then we said, wow, yes, we're really committed to this. Let's do it again. April version 2. March, March, April, and then May. Finally, in May, we're like, listen, Instagram Live bahut ho gaya. We only can't sit in front of our own phones for this long. And I think everybody experienced that, right? So, and I don't know if you remember, but back then there was some news about, the lockdown is going to lift. Things are getting better. So we're like, let's maybe do a wait and watch. Of course, for us, and exactly what you said, Vineet, the visceral experience of being in the same, in front of the same stage as 10,000 other people vibing to the same song is not replaced with watching a concert online. And that's exactly what we wanted to change. So while we did take a call to say that let's not do anything on ground because that would be a disservice to the community itself in a pandemic here, if we have to build this online, we have to do it in a way that's meaningful, in all the ways a live event is. And that's where our partners at Paytm Insider really played a massive role. Just breaking it down into, okay, what are the various aspects of attending a festival? One, you go with fans, and you go with fans who are friends. So that whole idea of a global chat, which Sameeksha was talking about, where you can see what other people are saying, so that there is healthy doses of FOMO plus being in the know.
Right.
So that was something that, really worked for us. Then the other aspect of attending a festival is crowd watching. Hey, we all go out to see who else came out, right?
Right.
So we had this feature which fans can send in 15-second spots of them enjoying the festival at home. And we had several people participate in that. So just sending in videos of, hey, this is what my festival experience looks like.
Beautiful.
And of course, with everyone becoming more and more comfortable with selfies, we saw a lot of people sending those videos in. Of course, there was the feature of being able to toggle between stages. A lot of people came back and said, hey, I've seen more music this year than I have at any previous year of the festival, simply because it was so easy. You don't have to physically walk through the food court. But I think the one that really hit the ball out of the park was the feature which allowed you to get into a private party room with 5 of your friends and speak to each other, see each other while enjoying the festival as well. And you could figure out how to turn up or turn down the sound on either one of the feeds. So either you want to see your friends and hear them, or you want to see the festival, or then zone everything out and just watch the festival for what it is. And Paytm Insider honestly did a fab job on this platform. Outside of this, of course, having support from artists, and they were very clear that they were using technology for what technology is worth. If they can't be in the same room as their fans while they're performing, what is it that they have access to? So a lot of them actually dropped in on the global chat to come and say hi to fans. All their sets were curated in a way that was specially made for the fans of the Bacardi NH7 Weekender. So it's a never before seen and never again to be seen set. They put in so much effort into their sets. So we had Young Raja shoot all over the streets of Singapore because that was his way of telling his story and sort of sharing that moment with his fans, where fans can get to know him a little better. Or like, for example, Fink or Pratik Kuhar, where it literally felt like we were sitting in their living rooms and watching a private concert. So a lot of the artists put in a lot of effort in making sure that they could use video to bridge that gap as well. So yeah, all of these things really came together to make the festival experience what it was.
Sounds smashing, man. I mean, it's so, I'm not a convert, right? Like I said before, I just don't see it, right? And I was talking about this on another podcast as well, where we were discussing that all live events have taken to video except for the concert. But I mean, this sounds like a place that's definitely worth visiting, right? What do you expect next year to be like? Now, I know I'm not asking you to make predictions, but say we do have limited amount of on-ground available, right? Like, is there a hybrid that you're thinking of? Are those considerations there? Or is it played by the, let's see, let January come, abhi main bahut thak gaya hu, baad mein baat karte.
I think more than that, it's like, let the vaccine come, fir baat mein baat karte.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But there have been a lot of learnings from this year, which we can't negate, which we'll obviously keep, at heart. And I think most importantly is the way the consumers reacted to a lot of stuff as well. And not only on the platform, but I think, stuff that we did before it also. So I don't know if you know, but we send these festival kits, which are very true to, so there's this Bacardi mug in which you can have your beautiful cocktail, or the festival bands. So, things like that, which add on to the whole, it's not even nostalgia, but it's the whole festival vibe, or, you're part of something. I think those are the simple learnings that we're going to take forward from this edition when we build on next year's edition in whatever format it's going to be, whether it's a hybrid or whatever it comes to life. I think Gunjan is right. There are a lot of things right now into the play, but we absolutely are going to keep the consumer at the heart of everything that we do. And that's what we do at Bacardi. It's very important that we listen to them, we hear them. So currently we are also going through, all the chatter that was happening when we hosted this. What is it that they were talking about? What are the things that they liked? What are the things that they want us to take forward? And pick up those chatter. And from chatter, I mean whatever they were talking about. And then, work on what the next edition is going to come alive to. And it's very, very important to listen to what your consumers is going to say, because in the end, if you want to be part of their conversation, you have to know what they're talking about. Otherwise, you don't have any right to participate. You can't have that right to participate, not only as a brand, but as anybody else as well. So
absolutely. Let me ask you this, right? So 10 years on, massive cultural capital accumulated with Bacardi NH7 Weekender. Bacardi's also moved into other spaces, right? Ritviz is probably only great example of branded music out there, if I may say so.
The best example of branded music. Yes,
the best example, right? We don't remember Red Label Six Pack Band for the music, right? We don't say that was great music. But Ritviz we remember for great music, right? Now, tell us how this is right to play that you talked about, right? How that's expanded into other spaces. Tell us how that's been. And here's how I'm asking you this, right, Sameeksha. It takes a lot of internal wrangle to get people to buy into cultural products, right? And I know this because I've been doing this a long time as well. It's always a hard pitch, right? And then if it's successful, there's always the fear of failure for next year. There's always planning it out as from a brand's perspective, right? Like, of course, from a cultural perspective, that this is significantly valuable. But from a brand's perspective, there are so many things that go into it, right? Look, help us understand how this cultural capital in music that Bacardi is accrued, you're looking at growing into the next few years. I know music is a big space.
It is.
What are the other places that you're looking at, and how does this conversation happen internally at Bacardi? Like, what is the sort of cultural strategy that you guys have in place to go forward, say for the next maybe 5 or 10 years?
5 or 10 years, I think.
Maybe.
No, absolutely. But we do see it from that picture. And you're right, because not doing anything which is not, a continued conversation is doing a disservice to your brand. And I think that's what is ingrained within us also. So if Bacardi as a brand stands for do what moves you, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be the enablers in this space. And music, of course, is that golden thread or silver thread or whatever you want to call that, which ties everything that we do in our ecosystem. Enabling artists has been something which we've always taken pride in, building these experiences. And I know you said that cultural experiences is going to be important for you. It is. And we take immense pride in, bringing that cultural discussion or having those conversations with our consumer or building platforms which can have those conversations. Bacardi NH7 Weekender is one of them. Casa Bacardi is the other one, which we, just introduced last year. And Bacardi Sessions, Ritviz is a find of Bacardi Sessions. This is the 4th year. In fact, we've just launched with Nuclear and Vidya Fox. The auditions are still on if you want to participate, by the way. But I think if we do not have those, and it's never been, anything that, I as a brand manager, as the, the lead for the brand, need to internally say that, hey, I want to do this. if it falls within what the brand stands for, which it does, otherwise we won't be doing it. If it falls within what we want to stand as a brand for, if it falls within the objectives of what I want to deliver as a brand in this year, whether it's in India, whether it's all over the world, then I think we make those plans accordingly. So it's never been an internal play that I want to choose one over the other. It's always about creating this stuff. The reason Casa Bacardi also, and I'll give you an example, the reason Casa Bacardi also came into existence last year is because we could see that, our consumers are also evolving in terms of the experience. They are now traveling, going out there. They know what a beach vibe is. They know what a Caribbean vibe is. What is the heritage of Bacardi? And we wanted to bring that heritage back to the roots of India. And hence we created it. So, and we got amazing response in terms of everything that we looked for. And we would. Sessions, for example, Ritviz, yes, is an amazing story. But at the same time, I think it's also, and we love Ritviz, we worked with him for the last 3 years. And we've been lucky to be his partner in this journey of his, whether
it's a great story. Yeah.
It's the start of it, or whether it's launching his album last year, or, doing the first UGC video we just did, which and Urgai, we got about 600 people submitting entries during the lockdown. We created a music video, by the way. He just sent out an entry on his song, on the song, and we got some amazing response on it. So I think it's everything goes hand in hand. Also, we've got the same love from the artists, from our partners and consumers as well that we work with. So it again ties back to the commitment that the road or the journey that we've taken. And I wouldn't say it's been a 10-year journey or 11-year journey with Weekender. I think our association with music and artists and the community has been way, way longer as well. So it just comes all together.
Let me double click there and just ask you this, right?
Okay.
And then I'll bring Gunjan in as well. It's not a straightforward decision, right? That's what I'm trying to sort of get at. There is risk involved. You're creating culture properties. Weekender, I would say, is pretty much the leading edge of the category in the country, right? You don't have an experience that not only is created with all of those good things in mind, it's also great at communicating, packaging, all of it looks great, feels great, fantastic, right? But beyond that, there's no guarantee that Ritviz will succeed, right? For example, or there's no guarantee that the artist who you are supporting does well, right? How do you then continue to have that faith and investment? Is where I was getting at, right? Obviously, there's great partnerships lead to great ideas and those ideas coming alive. But are there anxieties within the Bacardi system as well? Thinking, hey, are we there, not there? So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what are the questions you ask yourself, right? Because it's so easy to be like, hey, dude, we really know this space, right? Like for example, I'm going to say, name another brand who's really good at cultural products is Red Bull. Right? It's so easy for Red Bull also to just be like, we know this shit, right? We got it in the bag. So how do you challenge yourself in that?
I don't think we can be complacent about that. I wish any brand could be. If somebody is, then great for them. We're not complacent about that.
No, I'm not saying.
I don't think. No. I'm just saying. So I don't think even consumer loyalty is something which you can take for granted today. That hey, they've loved Sessions, or hey, they love Weekender, so next year they're going to be back. Absolutely not. Every year is a fresh year. So even the way, and I'll give you this example of Sessions itself. So Bacardi Sessions has evolved over the last 4 years. It's not the same format every year. So first year we did this whole round of finding the next artist. Next year we took Ritviz on that journey, right? Last year again, Sessions was his album launch. So we keep on evolving, and that's where I think our confidence also comes in, because we listen, we hear, we see the environment, and then we work on it. I don't know if I've been able to answer it, but there is no one shoe fits all strategy. Never works on it. We don't work like that. Similarly, I think Weekender again this year is an example as well. We didn't want to. We could have done something on ground, like, okay, hey, let's look at this smaller number here, there. No, absolutely not. If we want to be true to, and if we want to deliver to certain things, I think when we know our objectives, what we want to cater to, what are we looking at, and what is the consumer asking for, and what are the, and what they're looking for, I think that's when we know we're going to deliver a successful format. Success can be multiple parameters, right? It could be achieving those numbers that you set out for at the start of it, or learning from those numbers as well. And we learn. We are eager learners.
Which brings me to my quick question. Yeah, sorry. Quick question. Are there metrics that you look at from this association? I know it's like the most media planning question of all time. like the most. But it's interesting because, and when I think of great branded IPs, right? You've got like Blender's Pride fashion tour, right? Been going on for 15 years or something like that, right? Again, and we're looking at properties that takes a lot of time, and for a marketing organization, right? You have to look at certain metrics. So what do you look at? Are there, like, okay, it has to generate these many conversations, or it's footfall? What is it that you look at?
So I think that there are various of them, but this edition being a content visual experience, conversations and all these things came into play. But it's also about the kind of conversations also we are having. And I think that's more important for us. What are the people talking about? Why are they talking about? And how are we leading them into those conversations? So those qualitative aspects, I think, are more important for us as a brand. As I said, we take ourselves and we take a lot of pride in what we present to out there on the world or to our consumers. And we take immense care to listen to what they're saying. So you're right. So that qualitative aspect becomes much more important in the journey that we take forward for any platform. And I think as a brand manager, and I won't say this is about the company, but as a brand custodian also, we'll do a disservice if we don't do that. And, and to fall in love with anything is the second disservice. You should always be ready to break it apart and then build it up in the right manner. So, yes.
Beautiful. I think that was really well put. And in this business, you definitely do tend to be like, hey, we built that, but now it needs to look different. So very, very well put. Gunjan, over to you. Yeah, same question to you. Yeah, tell us what keeps OML awake about the next few years of Bacardi and NH7 Weekender, apart from the fact that Bacardi Hoga.
No, I think just knowing that Bacardi Hoga is what actually allows us to figure out what more we can do with the property. And I think having that similar goal in terms of, we're on the same journey. We want to do more of this. We like where we are, but we could be in a better place. And knowing that we're both working towards the same thing. And Sameeksha said it best, right? She literally spoke like an anthropologist. I don't know if you picked that up, but literally knowing how the consumer context is shifting, how assumptions are changing, allows us to figure out where that opportunity is. So whether it was, obviously Bacardi and NH7 Weekender for what it was and the way that was progressing, or then launching Bacardi sessions for the brand, it was literally realizing that even as a media planner, this is where majority of our audience's attention is, or this is what fans enjoy the best. So let us give them what they enjoy and planning for that. Not saying that numbers become the brief, but saying that numbers become the guardrail, and any creativity layered on top of that is obviously necessarily human effort. And that's what we then turn to artists for. But yeah, I think that's what it really is, just figuring out what we're learning and then seeing what we can build from there.
That's lovely. I think what I'm hearing from the both of you is this: the bedrock of this partnership, both on the OML side and the Bacardi side, is a deep interest in what the consumer has to say, what people have to say, or what fans have to say about the kind of music that they like, right? And there's no substitute for that. You can figure out a way to pad numbers wherever you like, but unless and until you really know what the demand is for and where that demand is headed and why that demand is the way it is right now, you're always going to miss the bus, right? So let me just ask you this: how do you guys do that, right? Like, I know OML is obviously got its feet on the ground. I know Bacardi, I'm sure, has internal systems in place, but what's the process of synthesizing all of this, often qualitative, like learning, right? Where do you guys look at for this? And sort of related but unrelated question is, how difficult is it to keep out bands you like from the programming just because you want to put them there? But okay. But tell us how you guys keep your ears to the ground on what the consumer is listening to, or what the consumer is saying, right? And we'd love to get a handle on the synthesis of this space.
Honestly, constantly understanding how trends are shifting, how they're evolving. I think at least at an OML level, that's what's led from the journey, just starting out as independent music representation. And back then, our pitch to musicians was, hey, don't sign up with a record label company. Give your music away for free on YouTube, and fans will come out and pay for ticket money. And that's an equally credible way of making a living as a musician. And to us, of course, now, because hindsight is 2020, right? It almost feels like that was the birth of content marketing. And luckily, of course, for everyone else, like our bets paid off, YouTube took off, etc. So that journey from music to then working with comedians to working with OTT platforms to now working with Bacardi in like 20 plus markets, all of that has always been, hey, follow the fans' interest. And I think the several internal presentations that we've done to Bacardi, where it's a very simple slide which says fans trump consumers, where that is literally what it is. We know that's where the audience attention is. And if you follow that, the rest of the numbers will follow you.
Fantastic. And how about you, Sameeksha? I mean, I think it's got to be a little more formal as a process to keep tabs of what the consumer is looking at, right?
So yes, I think there are two ways. So they have always been this traditional way to reach out to the consumers, and everybody has those equity trackers in place. So do we. Of course, that's one of the formats. But
they don't report independent music preferences.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I'm saying that's one of the things that we always had in place. But I think what social and digital has opened up for us, it has opened up people talking. And it's helping us because earlier when, that evolution even you would have seen, and the best example that we used to quote in MTV used to be that, earlier a Mother's Day post used to be Happy Mother's Day. A year later, it used to be a picture of mom and a Happy Mother's Day. The third year, it became a whole paragraph and why my mom is the best and a Happy Mother's Day. So the evolution and, the way the consumers have now started opening up to everybody helps us listening. And I think active social listening is something which we've been doing for a very long time. And Gunjan was right? So even if it's programming, the artists out there, we do that kind of listening that, okay, who are the bands who are now coming up? Of course, like Spotify and all these guys are now coming up with the best bands in the top 20, the top 30 list. But they've always been, that undercurrent, which you can always look at. And it helps us to look into those numbers. And of course, we have certain tools which are available for it, brand specifically also. But I think it's the overall, the angle that we look at from a music perspective always has been discovery. And I think that's what you'll see in Bacardi NH7 Week. The kind of music that we represent is a beautiful mix of people that you would want to listen to, people that you would probably know of and don't know of. And third would be like, oh my God, who is this? Okay, this is the first time I'm listening to this person and this person is so good. And that is the one I think I, as a consumer, always take away that, oh my God, like I've never heard these guys. Who are they? These guys, and they're so amazing. So I think those are the filters that we put through when we look at, in the music space as well.
That's fantastic. Because like going back to this thing that I asked you a little while ago, the risk is not, will this guy make good music, right? That's not the risk, right? Or the risk is not, the risk is much more, will people enjoy it, right? And that's so much harder to predict because music can be objectively good. But I remember, the way I remember seeing Ritviz's set at the last Weekender, and when people asked him for the encore and I have the video, that's not possible to do, right? That's the real victory of Ritviz, and I think that's the real proof of the pudding with.
And his parents were there. Like, think of the pride that they had. Like I knew that over there. Oh my God, I'm just Bacardi person, and I had so much of pride standing at that music console level when people went mad. And yes, so you're right. But I think those are the moments, are the moments that matter to us, which we take away and which we feel very happy about. But you don't plan with that in head. You can't. That's impossible to do.
Of course.
The only thing we can do is give the means and the tools to, the guys that we associate with, whether it's the artist or our partners. And then take a leap of faith sometimes and take it forward from there.
Let me ask you my last but one question. Okay. I'm so happy at this end of this episode that I feel like I've been to Weekender myself and that comes through because you guys really feel like a collaboration that really works. And I'm sure that's down to the great teams at both Bacardi and OML and your partners. I'm going to try and reduce it to like simple wisdom. And I know you guys will give me some gems there, but what are 3 things, right? And I'm not going to be like 3 things are important for a good collaboration. No, that's not what I'm asking for. What are 3 things that have enabled Weekender as a collaboration between Bacardi and OML stand out from the rest in your experience, right? As custodians for it, and what will ensure that it stands out for the next few years as well, right? Because the background to my long-winded question is, digital IPs are cheaper to create, right? The cost of creation much lower, right? Production is off by a fair bit. You have so much more access, right? You can, like you said, you can bring Metallica down, for example, right? So in my limited understanding and experience, it feels like, yaar, ye to sabne karna chahiye. This is something that can be created for everyone, right? So how are you looking at like all of these learnings? What are those three things that you've zeroed in on and said, hey, this is what really makes it work? It could be operational, it could be philosophical, but yeah, three things that have been your differentiators and will continue to be for the next few years.
Okay, interesting. The first one, which is a no-brainer for me, I think, is the continuity of the association. This is the 11th year, and I think it helps us to build the story when you have a story to tell. That's, I think, the first thing to do. Second thing, I think you said it in your question multiple times. It's active collaboration. Because without that, and active collaboration, I don't only mean between OML and Bacardi or all the other partners, but for me, the partners go beyond us. It's the partnership or active collaboration with the consumer. It's also the active collaboration with the artists that we want to work with. And this year, more than ever, right? They had not collaborated the way they did, like shooting from the hillocks of Meghalaya to the streets of Singapore to LA. It wouldn't have been possible for us to give this kind of an experience to our consumer. And I think the third one has always been, I don't know how to term it rightly, but I think enthusiasm. I don't know if it works well. I'll find a better term sometime later. But
that works. Yeah,
but I think it's the energy, it's the enthusiasm, and it's the like we can do better. Again, it's a very used term, but what is next? Probably, I think that would be the third thing, which I think the way we've been able to create Bacardi and NH7 Weekend, I think for me, these three pillars really, really stand, for me. Yes, absolutely. Continuity, collaboration with consumers, artists, partners. And third would be, of course, enthusiasm and the agility that we do stuff over here.
I'd say the same. Honestly, Sameeksha has hit the nail on the head.
Wow, that is such a copy my answer.
I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm like ripping off her answer sheet. But this is it. It's knowing that just having the security of knowing that we're going to be able to do this again is literally what artists look for. It's what fans look for. It's knowing that we're going to be able to do the same thing again and better again next year is what brings teams together on both sides. So really, she's definitely hit the nail on the head with that answer, because it's having each other's back is what's made it work, honestly. Thank you.
But that's how you know you had a good answer, right?
Yeah,
and the other guy's like, what she said.
Sameeksha, Miss Front Bencher, has taken that one.
I'll take my check in cash.
No, I think it's been a great episode talking about one of the iconic IPs of sort of urban India that there are, right? There's so much to learn from how it's come together, right? Like for my listeners, when I was growing up, I had a band and I have organized hundreds of college rock festivals, right? And they always make you feel like, "Hi, acha hai," and Weekender was what that the answer to that but was, right? Oh yeah, correct. And it's great to see that 10 years on, it's retained that vibe, right? I think that,
oh yeah, that's the term, vibe.
Yeah. That vibe, I think that is the hardest thing, right? At the heart of any great experience is the challenge of scaling it, right? Can you retain the essence of what works when 1,000 people were there to when 30,000 people are there, right? And that, I think, is the ultimate triumph of Weekender in its first 10 years. And congratulations, guys, on that. I think I was physically present at the past two Weekenders. Like I said, this time around, I had Sameer Punjabi at OML, was an old friend of mine, kind enough to let me know when it was happening. But fantastic in terms of the vibe that you have kept intact. My last question on this episode, and I'm glad that you spared this hour to talk to me about this, but my last question is an entertainment recommendation from the two of you for my listeners, right? Something that has been a story, a meme, a song, a game, could be whatever. Something that's been part of your life, right? Something that's been important or has had impact.
Okay. I don't know. Right now I'm watching Money Heist. I don't know. I really like that show. If that works. But I think everybody's already watched it.
No, we want something more meaningful.
I know everybody's watched it. I'm really sorry, Vineet. I just had a baby. I have hardly any sleep. So for me, any entertainment that I get is thank you. I'm like, okay, what is the entertainment that? So now I'm catching on to that. But otherwise, yeah, you're asking a very meaningful question. Gunjan, you go first.
Sorry, I still need time to think about it. The thing that I work in an entertainment company. When was the last time I was entertained? This doesn't work.
I am shaking my head disapprovingly. You guys need better work-life balance, Gunjan. At least Sameeksha has a baby as an excuse. What excuse do you have?
How do you choose one? So you can't really choose one because, and like I keep on scrolling through, for me, Instagram is in my entertainment, So during the nights when I had to be awake for my child, Instagram is my entertainment, and sometimes they do recommend stuff, which is like really funny. But I just keep on scrolling from one video to the other, and now there's obviously Reels has also come in. So it's about discovering what you like. There's so much out there.
Were you ever on TikTok though?
No, not really. And then it got banned, unfortunately.
Yeah. TikTok is great entertainment.
It was. But most of the videos were again shared on Instagram. So yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Reshared. So.
No, it could be something old as well. It doesn't have to be new. But yeah, we'll take Instagram for your answer.
Thank you.
That's fine. Gunjan.
Okay.
You can say hard thing about hard things also.
How did you know? So I actually sent that book over to a bunch of folks at OML as their Christmas gift. Yeah.
That's how he knows.
Oh wow. No, that's not how I know. It's a touchstone.
It is. Absolutely. And I think there's a story in there which actually has been very useful to us across teams, where I think Ben Horowitz did this at one of his companies, where obviously his head of sales and his head of execution, which was software development, were fighting with each other. So he actually just told them that, look, if you want to continue in your positions, what I need you to do is do each other's jobs for 6 months. Because all he needed to do was get the other one to see each other's perspective. And he actually got them to flip sides. It kind of reminded me of, that very kiddish movie called 13 Going on 30.
Parent Trap.
Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah. 13 Going on 30.
So I literally feel like that's what they did. It got a teenager to swap bodies with the mom to figure out what's going on in each other's lives. And I feel like this works beautifully in any setting, whether it's a family setting or whether it's a company setting. It always works. So yeah, I think that's the one that I'm going to go with.
Fantastic. That's a good one. Like I like that. There's a substance to it. Well done. Sameeksha, Gunjan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. I had a few flashbacks of weekenders gone by. One of the pictures that we have in our house is of my wife and I having a lot of fun at Delhi Weekender. So it's like a deeply personal relationship that I have with Weekender as well. And I try and make it a point to at least try and visit. I remember year before last, I came only for the last day just because I didn't want to be like, Arey, main is saal gaya nahi. Last year as well, I made a friend wait for 4 hours just in Pune so that I could like hang out at Weekender a little bit longer. But yeah, congratulations guys on another fantastic edition of Weekender, and thank you so much for sparing time. I hope you had fun.
You did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yes.
Thanks, Sameeksha.
That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. This is Vineet Kanabar saying goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, just a quick reminder, please do help us out by filling out our survey. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. It really does help us figure out who's listening and, what are the characteristics that we can go and push to advertisers. That is massively helpful to us. Please, please, please do help out with that. So, on the network this week, let me start with a quick milestone. It's the 100th episode of Begin the Journey with Ashish Vidyarthi. Congratulations to Ashish and the team. Great show. If you're not listening to it, he talks to you about just how to approach life. It's just very, very cool stuff. Do check this out. Want to mention the note with Maruk Inayat. She talks about why petrol prices are so high. On the Wired Talk, Siddharth speaks with Harsh Mandar. On Advertising is Dead, Varun speaks to Kabir Biswas, the founder of Dunzo. They have a really interesting conversation about, what's the future of Dunzo and what they're thinking about. on the Traveling Professor's Diaries. Check out Siddharth talk about the performance paradox. I found it really fascinating and interesting. I think that you guys will really get something out of listening to that. Please do give that a listen. And finally, let me mention Zindagi Diaries. It's Ragini Kumar's poetry podcast. The first week when it came out, we put out 5 poems first week. We put out another 5 poems this week, and the response has been phenomenal. Do check it out. It's in Hindi. It's a poetry podcast. Something a little different. Do give it a shot and let us know what you think. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are two passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.